I'm going to get started. I'm Edie Lott, and I'm team leader. I'm team leader for the Sierra Pacific Synod Hunger Network, and Mary James has generously offered, after I asked her, to do a short devotion tonight. Mary has been on our team for many, many years, and she's as close to a co-leader as anyone else could be. Mary's been a great help over the last few years and very involved in LOPPs. Okay, that works. Mary, okay. Turn it over to Regina when you finish your devotions. And Regina.
To who?
Regina.
I know.
And she will introduce our new Hunger Fellow, which we're really excited about. It was fun to be on the interview for Courtney. So, Mary, it's all yours for the moment. Please keep your microphones muted. And I'm even going to mute ours now.
Well, I'm hoping this is short enough devotion. It's from Isaiah 58. And it says, "For day after day, they seek me out. They seem eager to know my ways, as if they were a nation that does what is right and has not forgotten the commands of its God. They ask me for just decisions and seem eager for God to come near them. Why, we have fasted," they say, "and have you not seen it? We have humbled ourselves. Have you not noticed? Yet on the day of your fasting, you do as you please and exploit all your workers. Your fasting ends in quarreling and strife, and in striking each other with wicked fists. You cannot fast as you do today and expect your voice to be heard on high. Is this the kind of fast I've chosen? Only a day for a man to humble himself? Is it only for bowing one's head like a reed and for lying on sackcloth and ashes? Is that what you call a fast, a day acceptable to the Lord? Is this not the kind of fasting I've chosen? To loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke? Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe him and not turn away from your own flesh and blood, then your light will break forth like the dawn and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then you will call and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help and he will say, here am I. If you do away with yoke of oppression, with the pointing finger and malicious talk, and if you spend yourselves on behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness and your night will become like the noonday. The Lord will guide you always. He will always satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land and will strengthen your frame. You will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. Your people will rebuild the ancient ruins and will raise up the age-old foundations. You will be called repairer of broken walls, restorer of streets with dwellings. Great God of presence and promise, we thank you for your presence with us right now and for your promises that give us direction and hope. Please guide us to be your faithful people and to provide and to take the fasting, the actions that you would have us to do to your glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
My turn, Mary Claire?
Yes, it is. We are so excited that Regina Banks is able to share this information with us and to unravel some of the confusing parts of the propositions. You're going to make it all better, Regina, right? You promise?
Lord, don't do that to me now. This is the third the third incarnation of this presentation that I've given, and each one of them has taught me just how confusing this process can truly be. And so thank you very much for braving this with me as we engage our civic joy and our civic duty together. But before we get started on that, let me say, my name is Regina Banks. It is my honor, it is my joy to serve as the director of the Lutheran Office of Public Policy, California. The Lutheran Office of Public Policy, California is a joint ministry of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America as funded by ELCA World Hunger and the 3 synods of the ELCA in California. That would be Pacifica Synod way down south in Hawaii, Southwest California Synod, and up here in Northern California, Sierra Pacific Synod. And the Bishop of Sierra Pacific Synod is with us this evening. Thank you for joining us, Bishop Jeff Johnson, and for the partnership that your office represents for our office at LOPP. Because of our connection with ELCA World Hunger, every 2 years we have the opportunity to host a Hunger Advocacy Fellow in our office. The Hunger Advocacy Fellowship is one of the premier opportunities that we have in the ELCA for young adults to learn faith-based advocacy. And this year it's our turn again. And we have found what we believe is a optimal candidate, somebody who's just brought excitement and life and vigor to our office already. She's been on the job 9 hours, Courtney, a little more than that. But we want to welcome her and give her an opportunity to come on and say a few words and get you all accustomed to seeing her face and knowing her name and responding as she reaches out to you for the next year of her fellowship. Courtney, is she there?
Hi, my name is Courtney. I recently graduated from Clemson University in South Carolina, but I am originally from Long Beach, California. I didn't grow up in the Lutheran church. I found it while living in South Carolina, and I just instantly fell in love with it. The difference between the church I grew up in and the Lutheran church, the main difference I noticed was just how welcoming and inviting it was. The community that was built at multiple churches I attended across South Carolina, and just how loving it was. I truly, truly appreciated it, and I haven't looked back since, and I'm just really, really excited to be able to do something that combines my love for politics and my love for the church and trying to help people. So I'm very, very excited for this opportunity, and I look forward to working with you all.
See, I told you guys. Very excited. And I'm going to share with you just a little bit of a conversation that Courtney and I had earlier as I was saying, she was saying, what can I do to get started, to get tucked into the work that we're going to do? I said, we'll start with these first 2 social statements and then get back to me. We'll talk in a day or two. And we talked again in a day or two. And she's like, oh my God, somebody has laid this all out for us. And we can have these discussions. I'm like, yeah. That's why I'm here too. I read the social statements and social teachings, and I'm like, oh my God, somebody has laid this all out for us. I don't agree with every single word, but it is amazing that we get to lay this out and have these kinds of conversations in a Christ-centered and a Christ-centric community. So I share that with her, and hopefully I share that with you all as well. Let's get started on what brings us here today. And those of you who have ever been in a presentation with me before know that I am technologically challenged. If we were in person, I would be running up and down the aisles and very engaging, but on this tiny screen, I'm having to make life work. So please bear with me as I figure out the PowerPoints and the Zooms and the whatnots. Amen. Amen. All right, let's see if I can get in here. Nope, that is not what I said to do. See, it has begun. Open this. Usually I get Edie to do my tech stuff, but couldn't do that this time. All right, that's what I wanted. Share and this. You guys let me know. Can you see my screen?
No.
Not yet? Gloriana. Can you
There
see?
we go.
Yep.
All right. All right, voting faithfully with the Lutheran Office of Public Policy, California. And Edie, maybe you can do me a favor, because if I have this up, I can't see the chat in any way. I can't monitor anybody that's trying to get my attention. So maybe you can help me with that, yeah? I assume that's a yeah. Okay. So these are our November 2024 ballot measures and voter guide. And these are recommendations that represent the best understanding of both our social statements and social teachings, as well as the ballot measures themselves. And as we get into it, if you have been in any of these meetings with me before in previous years, I will tell you that if you don't understand every word of the ballot propositions, that is intentional. That is intentional. There are people who get paid quite a bit of money to figure out how to write this is real, how to write ballot propositions in such a way that they pass legal muster, but that will confuse the maximum number of voters so that they can get their way. This is intentional. It's not you, it's them. Okay, so we are all figuring this out together, and these recommendations represent the best understanding that the Policy Council of ELCA has of both the ballot propositions and our social teachings. You can find all of the social teachings that we're basing it on at elca.org/faith-faith-society. And this the entire voter guide as a voter guide lives on our website. And this presentation will also live on our website as soon as Edie helps me put it on our website. Before we get into this piece, I'm going to say, and I want for you all to hear me say, I'm going to say it 3 separate times so nobody can say that they didn't hear me say, that your church is not telling you how to vote. That's one. Your church is not telling you how to vote. That's 2. Your church is not telling you how to vote. That's 3. This is just our best understanding of what the propositions are and our social teachings. We want to give you something to think about, and nobody is going to be checking your homework. Nobody's standing over your shoulder deciding whether you're a good Lutheran or a bad Lutheran based on how you vote. And that's real. Okay. So the proposition column contains the following information: the number of the proposition as it will appear on your ballot. So you should have received your ballot in the mail by now. If you have not received your ballot in the mail by Monday, contact my office. That is something we absolutely can help you with, is tracking down your ballot. If you have not received your ballot by Monday, please reach out to us. Let me know. We can help you find that ballot. It'll have the number of the proposition and the type of proposition. So a bond is a bond measure. Bond is debt. Bond is we're going to issue debt and investors will buy that debt. And then we as taxpayers, as Californians, will pay that debt back. That's what it means. An amendment is a legislatively approved constitutional amendment. We are attempting to change the California state constitution. And a statute is a statute. A statute is a law in just the same way that a bill passed in the legislature is law. It's just 2 different means to the same end. Okay. Did I see it? Okay, didn't see any hands. What do our recommendations mean? And strong support or strong oppose. That means that when we took a look at what we think the ballot measures do, and we look at our ELCA social teachings, it is 1 for 1. Our social teachings say, do not do X. And the ballot proposition says, we're thinking about doing X. We've got direct social teaching that says, yeah, we're for this or we're not for this. And it's clear. Support or oppose means, yeah, you make a very good faith effort and a good faith thinking and say that our social teachings say yes or no. I mean, maybe rational minds could differ. Always rational minds can differ, but we think there's a pretty good reason to say that this is support or oppose. Where we get questions is on the difference between neutral and no position. Neutral means that there are 2 or more social teachings that are implicated that are at loggerheads, and to make a support or oppose position would be to say, and this happened last year, I don't think it's necessarily as big a deal this year, it would say our housing and homelessness statement says this, and our environmental statement says this. They are at exact loggerheads, and we're not in a position to tell you which one of these social statements is greater or lesser. That goes down to a point of personal conscience, and you get to make that call for yourself. And no position means we couldn't find social teaching that's on point at all. I mean, we could twist social teaching to say one thing or another, but we're not going to do that. And we're going to tell you that we're not going to do that. So are there any questions about what these mean? All right. Prop 2 is a bond measure, and it authorizes $10 billion in general obligation bonds to fund construction and modernization of public education facilities. LOPP champions education and school funding. The school facilities measure fits with our ELCA's call to support initiatives that improve schools and promote excellent education for all students. And this is our guiding social statement is our calling on education. It is a general thinking in LOPP that we shouldn't run unnecessary debt. So we can find social teaching almost directly on point. We have to lay that against our displeasure for debt. And in this particular case, because of how education is funded in the state of California, and a little bit that California education funding is a little bit insulated from the ups and downs of the California budget process. You're going to hear me say later on that our environmental concerns are not insulated at all. When we have money, we fund things. When we don't have money, we don't fund them, and that's just how it happens. Education funding is a little better protected, and so we should take that into account when we're talking about issuing more debt and putting ourselves on the hook for later generations. Its support, rational minds could differ, but this is how we feel is the best opportunity. LOPP has supported this type of bond measure in the last 4 years. Yeah. I can't see any hands, so if you're trying to get my attention, I can't see you, but. Moving on to Proposition 3. Proposition 3 is a constitutional amendment for marriage equality, and it repeals Proposition 8 and establishes a constitutional right to marry. Strong support, LOPP California priority. Lutheran churches throughout our state already support and sanction marriage for all people. In fact, I'm not going to read this page. I'm going to read a different page. Dear Governor Newsom, on behalf of the Sierra Pacific, Southwest California, and Pacifica Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, we write to support Assembly Constitutional Amendment 5, which would amend the California Constitution, Amendment 3, ACA 5, which would amend the California Constitution by removing provisions instituted by Proposition 8 and enshrine marriage equality for LGBTQ plus people into our state constitution. Our church's values are rooted in faith and our love of God and neighbor. Social justice is an expression of our faith, and advocating for such is our baptismal calling. As ELCA Lutherans, we recognize that gender-based equality happens, quote, through laws, policies, and practices that support an equitable common good, abundant life for all, end quote. Lutheran churches throughout the state already support and sanction marriage for all people. We support full marriage equality as a civil right, as well as the consecration, blessing, and celebration of the unions of LGBTQ plus couples within our churches. We support this amendment and advocate strongly for lasting policy changes that will protect the civil rights of those who are married. In our tradition, we believe that marriage is a sacred bond and covenant. It is a gift of God when two people people share promises with one another and are joined together. We celebrate this as another sign of the inbreaking of love among us. Our core belief that marriage is a quote, earthly blessing, end quote, does not require gender conformity and is not contingent on strictly gendered norms. We wholeheartedly support our siblings, including LGBTQ plus siblings who seek to be married. For these reasons, we support ACA 5 as another important way to support the civil rights of those couples. Thank you, Governor, and your staff for your leadership on this crucial issue, and please let us know if we can be of any further assistance. Blessings and peace. Signed, the Reverend Jeff Johnson, Bishop, Sierra Pacific Synod, the Reverend Brenda Boss, Bishop, Southwest California Synod, the Reverend Dave Nagler, Bishop, Pacifica Synod. I think that is one of the most beautiful letters that I have read on a social issue coming from this organization in the whole time that I've worked for the ELCA. When I first read it, I did in fact cry. And so yeah, that's our position, and that's why. And yes, and I'm also going to take this opportunity to do a bit of a plug for Lobby Day, because some of the relationship that came into being so that this letter could be written, it's a part of the record of the state of California. It is a part of the record of the state of California, is because our bishops were at Lobby Day, and Bishop Johnson had a conversation with Evan Lowe's staff. And maybe, Bishop, do you want to, like, I don't want me to put you on the spot, but do you have like 2 seconds to tell people how this happened?
No, you tell the story. That's great.
And they did the 3 bills that we asked them to do, and then we ask the staff how we can be supportive of the legislator's office, and they say, well, we've got this constitutional amendment coming up. Do you know if there are any church groups that would be willing to support it? And of course we would. And that's the kind of connection that can only happen in person, that can only happen because you have those face-to-face conversations, and that's what lobby days are, and that's what they're for. So if you have any doubt that it does good and it's worth it to come and join us in Sacramento, usually the 3rd Wednesday in May, let that be a little bit of an inbreaking of opportunity for you here in this space. So very excited. There are no questions. We can
Regina,
move.
somebody has asked in the chat, what is Prop 8? And I'd also like to ask people if they have questions to put them in the chat, because we can only see a few of your faces and we can't see the hands raised. So I'm monitoring the chat for questions for Regina.
Okay.
What is Prop 8, Regina?
Proposition 8 outlawed same-sex marriage in the state of California. Let me go. What happened here? Oh no. Proposition 8 outlawed same-sex marriage in the state of California. And recall that the only reason that same-sex marriage is legal in California now is because, throughout the nation, is because a Supreme Court decision, the US Supreme Court's decision, came and superseded all of the other state constitutions. The concern was that with a change of administration in the White House and a change of Supreme Court justices, those questions could again be on the table. And we wanted to ensure that if it goes back to the states, that Proposition 8 was no longer the law of the land in the state of California. So it enshrines marriage equality in the California state constitution. Since we now know that some things that we believe to be long settled law can change with a new administration. But good question. Proposition 4 is another bond. It's a climate resilience bond, and it issues $10 billion. This is billion with a B, $10 billion in bonds to fund state and local parks and projects concerning environmental protection, water infrastructure, energy, and flood protection. Listen, for the last 6 years from my time at LOPP, and the decade before that, LOPP has been a strong climate champion. The first bill that we passed, the very first lobby day that we did was to pass a clean, safe, affordable drinking water fund. That fund exists because LOPP, your support, put it on the books in the state of California and has never been funded. It has never been funded because California has been in budget crisis since it was passed. So there's never been the money to put it there. Wildfires, drinking water, coastal priorities, environmental cleanup, massively underfunded, and even some bills like the Clean, Safe, Affordable Drinking Water Fund have never been funded. Other things have been massively underfunded. LOPP believes, Regina personally believes, this might be the last time this decade that we can fund these environmental concerns. Again, this is debt. And remember, I just said that we have to balance the idea of issuing debt versus what it does and how well our social statements are on point. Because we have tried to pass these bond propositions for the last 3 ballot go rounds, and because politically we really don't think we've got another good shot at the apple, that's why it is strong support. And we're kind of overcoming the barrier that comes with it being a bond measure. We believe strongly that our social teaching is directly on point, that Caring for Creation goes into great detail about how all of these concerns are directly in caring for God's creation and caring for our neighbor through God's creation. This is an Interfaith Power and Light California priority. We have are joined on with 2 grant opportunities with IPL to get out voter education on this issue. So we are investing quite a bit of time and energy into passing this and getting information out to churches and houses of worship of other traditions to get information about this bond measure out. Okay. Proposition 5. Public infrastructure voting, and this lowers the vote threshold from 66.67% to 55% for local bond measures to fund housing projects and public infrastructure. Housing is a fundamental human right, and this proposition works to ensure more affordable housing for a housing-deprived state. This state has underbuilt housing for the last 25 years. We are 750,000 units of housing behind. If we ramped up maximal housing tomorrow, we are still 10 years behind in the amount of housing that we need to build in the state of California to alleviate the housing crisis that is going on in this state. And part of the reason that we have the housing crisis in the state is because several years ago, we instituted everything else. Every other vote threshold in California is 55%. Sometimes it's 50% plus 1. And we've said that local bond measures to fund housing projects can be 66.67%, which means that vocal minorities are holding communities hostage. A minority gets their say under this regime. And our guiding social message is homelessness. I say that there's also our new social statement on civic life and faith also has some beautiful language that could be used for that. It hasn't been adopted yet, so we can't use it yet. But the thought process is already there that vocal minorities don't get to hold communities hostage, and we need to use every opportunity, every trick in the book, every tool in the toolbox in order to build housing and make it available for people in the state of California. Questions, comments, complaints? Next. Okay, so this one is Proposition 6 and it's Amendment Slavery, and I don't mean to cackle like Agatha. But when we were first starting to have conversations about this proposition, I put into the group chat, all of the state public policy officers have a group chat, and I said, hey guys, does anybody know whether the ELCA is against slavery? And like everybody in the group chat was like, what's going on out there in California, Regina? Are you okay? I'm fine. For those of you who don't know or don't recall, the U.S. federal Constitution has outlawed involuntary servitude, except for in the case of being a punishment for a crime. That means that it is still on the books that the state of California could punish somebody with involuntary servitude, or what it really turns out to be in most cases is working for 10, 12, 13 cents an hour at our institutions. This proposition is aimed at 3 institutions in the state of California, 2 men's facilities and a women's facility. And I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe 2 out of the 3 of them are for-profit institutions. That's what this is aimed at. But just on the outright statement of it, denying a person's dignity for any reason is not of God, and it should not be something supported by God's people. We are the 2nd state public policy office to support, and actually this is this quote, it should be strong support. The 2nd state public policy office to do strong support of anti-slavery measures. Colorado was the first one. And there are 3 other states that have it on their ballots this year. And we're hoping that, I don't see a constituting convention in the US coming down the pike anytime soon, but hopefully we can make this change state by state and make the changes in our society that way. Okay. The way that this Proposition 32 statute raising the minimum wage, this proposition is poorly worded. We're strong support. LOPP is in support of raising the minimum wage. That's what the proposition does. It has several more words in it than it needs to have to do what it's doing. Please don't let the excess verbiage of the proposition confuse you. Get your mind off of what it is. What it is it's raising the minimum wage until it gets to $18 an hour, and then it ties it to inflationary index. That's it. That's what it does. It goes on for several pages to get that, to accomplish that, but that's what it's doing. And our economic life social statement has wording directly on point. It implores governmental entities to make rules that ensure that human beings have a sustainable livelihood, and that business is regulated in this way. It doesn't have a dollar number attached to it, and we can always quibble about the dollar number. But what we cannot quibble about is the fact that our standard of living has been dropping for some time, and raising of the minimum wage has every time been demonstrated to raise the standard of living in the state of California and everywhere else that it's been tried. Are there any questions before I get uber in the weeds?
Regina, we missed one that was on the last one, on topic about the most people don't know about the 13th Amendment to the US Constitution allowing slavery in prisons. And then the next, I don't see it here. You gotta scroll it down. Here.
Did I miss something?
Okay. They said it's So it will be removed because it's already a federal law. That was the previous one. We didn't catch it in time about slavery. It's on the chat. Christian had we don't know, we had a question.
Oh, so we're talking about on the slavery question?
Yes.
Okay, so I think I understand what that question is asking about. There are no federal facilities in the state of California that would affect. So the federal US Constitution, you're right, our California state constitution would not affect the federal government in that way. We were just talking about state and state institutions. Our state constitution is aimed at 3 state facilities, 2 men's, one women's. But you're right, California state law would not have an impact on the federal government in that way.
And then we'll have a number of questions at the end that weren't on topic that we'll have you address.
Okay. Okay, Proposition 33 is a statute, local authority over rent control. It repeals key provisions of the Costa-Hawkins Rental Housing Act of 1995. LOPP was not in favor of Costa-Hawkins in 1995, and every time that we have had an opportunity to try to make revisions or repeals to Costa-Hawkins, LOPP has supported those attempts at revision and repeals. Costa-Hawkins is something that's known as preemption in the law. And what preemption means is that the state of California tells localities, the state of California tells the county of Sacramento, tells the city of Sacramento, no, you cannot create rent control measures in your county or your state. In your county or your city. The state is saying you cannot make that decision, with very few exceptions. There are only three places in the state of California that have true rent control. There are rent normalizations in parts of the Bay Area and in very small part of Los Angeles County, but 3 places in the whole state that have true rent control, and it's because they've gotten exemptions and workarounds to Costa-Hawkins, okay? There is a lot of money going into confusing the issue on this proposition. This measure, and I have read it up and down. I've read it up and down. I've asked our housing and allies to look it up and down. It will not repeal any rent control measures where they truly exist already in the state of California. And there's a lot of advertising out saying that this is going to repeal rent control in California, and you've worked so hard. That is not what this ballot proposition does. It is giving the tools back to local government, to local control. And it doesn't institute rent control anywhere where it doesn't already exist. It just says, okay, County of Alameda, if you would like to have rent control, you now have the opportunity to do that. Okay, Napa, the city of Napa, if you would like to have rent control, go about the process of doing that. Any city or county that wants to do that is still 2 years out from making that happen. We know how slowly city and local governments work. Okay, this will not institute rent control anywhere the day that it goes into effect. And any advertising that you've heard that says that it does is intentionally attempting to mislead you. Because rent control is a particular kind of regulation whose name does not appear in any of our social statements, it's support as opposed to strong support. It was support in the previous attempts to revisions and repeals of Costa-Hawkins, but we believe the spirit is strongly there. Okay, this one is the ballot proposition that I am most disappointed in our process, in our leaders, It would require as Proposition 34, healthcare revenue, as it is worded, it says it requires healthcare providers to spend 98% of revenues from federal discount prescription drug programs on direct patient care. This is several pages worth of a proposition that is aimed at one and only one organization in the Bay Area. It is two different opposing billionaire camps mad at each other and using our ballot propositions to wage war on one another on our ballots. And it's gross. And so both based on what the ballot proposition purports to do, which is take profits and tell a company what they must do with their profits, not taxing an organization, which the state can absolutely do. The state can say, you're selling cigarettes, you're selling gasoline, you're selling alcohol. All right, we're going to tax you at 98% because we don't actually want you doing this, or we want to make it uncomfortable for you to do that. That's not what they're saying. They're saying after you've made all of your revenues, after you've made all of your money, now you must spend 98% of it somewhere else. That's weird and confiscatory. But we also have no social statements on it, no social teachings on it anywhere. I will tell you that our position is no position. We don't believe we have social teaching on point. We think it is very bad behavior to use our ballot propositions in this way, and we have signed on to letters to the governor's office and to the Secretary of State's office saying, "Hey, we shouldn't allow our ballots to be used this way." The official position is no position. I will tell you that Regina, the way that I will fill this out is no. If that's at all helpful to you, based on the information that I have. But LOPP's official position is no position. Medi-Cal funding. So now, this proposition tells us that if the state had really wanted to, like I said, tax at a high rate and direct those monies to go somewhere, they could do what this ballot proposition is doing, which is it says it's going to tax managed care organizations to fund Medi-Cal programs. This is Kaiser, this is Blue Cross Blue Shield, this is Anthem, and we're saying that you are making record profits in the state of California. Fund Medi-Cal, but fund it permanently. This is really straight up, straightforward. All of our alliances and organizations that we work with on an ongoing basis say this is strong support. No question, this is what we need doing. This one also has quite a bit of
just talking about the propositions. Oops.
This one also has quite a bit of money out there designed to confuse the issue. Because Blue Cross Blue Shield, Anthem, Kaiser has the money to try to confuse the issue. That's what's happening. And they're allowed to try to get their point across. But what we believe is that Medi-Cal is how over 60% of children in the state of California get their health care. And if you're going to make goo gobs of money off of the state of California, you should help us care for our most vulnerable, our seniors, our children, our disabled. Moving on to Proposition 36. So 99 times out of 100 when LOPP takes a strong position and we invest time and energy, it is in the support camp. We try to be for things, not against things when we want to be that positive voice. This is one of those times where it really wasn't even a hard decision to say strong oppose. In 2014, Proposition 47 reclassified certain drug offenses as felonies, increasing penalties for certain it dismantles the criminal justice reform enacted by voters in 2014 as Proposition 47, and it reclassifies certain drug offenses as felonies, increasing penalties for certain drug crimes and increasing sentences for theft based on the value of those crimes. Is anybody else in this room old enough to remember the discussion about the differences between the sentences for powder cocaine versus crack cocaine? About the 3 strikes and you're out, the 3 strikes and you're out laws. Those
I
are
remember them.
those are coming back with a vengeance. Only this time it's not the difference between crack and powder cocaine. Now it's all of the multiple forms of fentanyl, and versus heroin and methamphetamine. Those are the new demon drugs. Even though as a proportion of all crimes, theft is down. As a proportion of all crime, theft is down, but you wouldn't know that based on what the Retailers Association and the Sheriff's Association and the Fraternal Order of Police are telling you. This is an attack on our communities in the form of getting tough on crime, and we know this doesn't work. For the last 20 years, LOPP has been working on criminal justice reform, and this proposition is almost a line-by-line attack on Proposition 47. This is disheartening. This is saddening. This is telling us that we are going in the wrong direction. And what is frustrating to me personally is that for the last year over the legislative session, multiple bills were introduced in the legislature telling retail associations, retail organizations that they had to have minimum staffing levels. So if you're telling me that the problem is retail theft, but you are firing all of your cashiers and you're putting in all of these self-checkout when people are stealing by running through the self-checkout, right? So I'm sure I may be trying to help you. Make sure you have high enough staffing levels that you don't have these massive amounts of massive amounts of theft that you are reporting, right? No, the Retail Association fought those tooth and nail. We don't want to hire people. We want to have you do self-checkout. But then when there's any theft at all, we want to outsource that, that security to the cities and the state. And we want you to lock up your citizens. And we want you to make it stricter penalties. And we want you to not have people do their rehabilitation in the community. We want you to go to jail, and we want you to go to prison. These are massive steps backwards. And these steps don't work and have never worked. And just line by line, it's in our criminal justice
This is the one.
social teaching.
Yeah, we got a question that came in on this.
Yes.
What do you say in response to increased smash and grab organized theft, though? My understanding is that it's partly what this is about.
Staff your store. Staff your store. If you feel like you're being overwhelmed, it's because you have 2 employees working an entire Target store, and staff your store. And that's not going to fix it 100% either. Nobody is saying that there's never going to be theft again. There will be theft. But is the way LOPP, our policy council, and our social teachings don't sound to us like what we want to do is incarcerating our way out of it. We don't want to be warehousing our neighbors. We want to make those shopping experiences as safe and as comfortable as we possibly can. And should there be theft, then we want to treat the offenders in a way that is kind and compassionate and understanding, and gets at the root causes of crime in our community. The instances of smash and grabs, as I said in the beginning, retail theft is down in the state of California. So the fact that all of us had the thought of smash and grab is because those thoughts have been exploited. Those thoughts have been intentionally exploited in our minds, and we don't want to fall for that kind of demonization of our neighbors. And let's just say it, whenever we make incarceration and tough on crime policies the norm, it falls disproportionately on the poor. It falls disproportionately on Black and brown communities. So as a racial justice, as an economic justice, and as a criminal justice concern, we are strongly opposed.
We have a person that would be very interested in any links to articles about the Retail Association staffing pushback.
Yep. There have been multiple of those articles in Cal Matters. If I get a chance, I might be able to attach a couple of them on our website, but it's for the last 4 months, the Retail Association has had basically an all-out assault on all of these minimum staffing concerns in state of California. Their paid lobbyists have painted the town. And, you know, one day when we're not being recorded, and this is not on official channels, I'll talk to you about how many people who are running for Assembly and Senate this time are running on Retail Association money to ensure that they never have to have permanent staffing levels. It's 1 for 1.
We have a number of questions that go back to that we didn't get on topic. And then there are statements in there that people can read. So just give us a moment while we scroll to the top for questions that we missed.
Okay, I will, since I can't see any of you, I'll just read this last page and then I will stop sharing my screen, and then we can, if there are some other questions, then we can do that together. But I do want to be respectful of our time as we're coming to the end of our covenant time together. But you can visit us at lutheranpublicpolicyca.org for info and resources. Follow along on social media, subscribe to our emails. Join us for advocacy info and questions. This is something that we came up with during the pandemic. It was originally advocacy in quarantine. It took us longer than it should have to come up with an acronym that had A, I, and Q, but we are continuing to do that at 12 p.m. on Zooms on Wednesdays while the legislature is in session. Since it's not in session right now, we will resume AIQ in January. So that you can keep an eye on what is going on in the legislature as we go along. Invite me to your congregation. I want to come. This is my love. This is our opportunity to connect with your individual congregation. Invite me, invite Courtney. We will come. And again, plan to join us for Lutheran Lobby Day in Sacramento in the spring. As soon as we get the new legislature puts out their calendar the first week of January, and once they do, we will nail down Lobby Day and we can put that on everybody's calendar. It tends to be the 3rd Wednesday in May, but we can't know that until the legislature knows that for sure. And then use the social statements and social messages in your faith formation curriculum. We watch this space as Churchwide Assembly considers our newest social statement, Civic Life and Faith, this summer. We, as an organization, we held several meetings in Southern California mostly to read that statement together and give feedback to the commission. And we're looking forward to having another tool in our toolbox in order to do this advocacy work and be witnesses for the Christ Jesus that we know together. And I think it's been very well done and we're excited about it. So I'm going to stop sharing. Our recommendations are published You may put them in the hands of any human person that would like them. It is our goal that it be used as much and as often as we can. This is our way of contributing to the discussion, and so we would like for it to get out there as much as possible. So I do know that there are a couple of questions. If this is the end of your covenant time with us, thank you very, very much. If you have questions, you can stay on. I'll stay here until the last person hangs up. This is what I love. But if this is the end of your time with us, go in peace and serve the Lord. And otherwise, contact me if you have any further questions or concerns. I'm happy to answer. This is what we do. This is why we're here.
Regina, I'd like people to know that although some people got the email that included the ballot voter guide, but if they did not get it, people that registered at the last minute just got the link on the website. One of the latest posts is a link to this voter guide, and they can print it. So if you did not get it with your email, or you've lost it in a slew of emails, go on our website and I posted it as a what's new post. You can find it.
And
Sylvia has a
then-
couple of questions she wanted to bring up from the chat.
So we had Dorothy who, when we were talking, I think the housing, they said something regarding Prop 2. I don't know what the question was, but then they said, what percentage of the lottery do the schools benefit?
Yeah, that's what I meant by the education funding is insulated a little better from the ups and downs of budget crises. And that's why we didn't have to jump quite so high in terms of getting a new bond. We need to fund our schools. We're supporting, but that, like I said, they're funded a little better. I don't have memorized what the funding formula is for it. It's easily Googleable, but I've got 4 things up on my computer right now this moment. If you email me, I can definitely find you the formula.
And then we had someone that they said at the end, could you let me know which state prisons you were referring to as it concerns involuntary servitude?
Yep, it's Corcoran, the women's prison in Vallejo, and one other that it's not jumping right out at me. It's
Thank
not
you.
saying, yeah.
Awesome, Soledad, CCR, California Institution for Men.
I think it's Soledad, but don't,
Okay. Or is it Crescent City?
it's a C. I'll have to go back and look at
Okay,
my,
that's all
yeah.
right.
Sorry,
That's all right. I just used to work in them all, so. Yeah.
mhm.
Okay, someone put, here's the information on lottery funding towards.
There you go. Thank you, Courtney.
And they got a link
On the chat.
in the chat at the very end. And I think we got all the questions, so someone will just have to speak up if we didn't catch it.
You have.
And a lot of thank yous.
Yeah. Yeah, we really appreciate everybody taking the time for this. And remember that it has never, ever been so important that you cast your ballot than it is this year. In many, many ways, not just these propositions, but I think you all know what I'm referring to. And not only cast your ballot, but get other people to cast their ballot. Denny and I have gotten to the point where we can't go out and walk precincts in Reno, which Nevada's a swing state, but we have 300 postcards ready to mail to get out the vote in Georgia. It's really important that we all vote and do more than just vote. So that's my little stump speech right now. But thank you for coming. And until all are fed, and this will help see that all are fed. We'll see you again soon, I hope, on some of our Humbler Network presentations. Does anybody have anything else they want to ask Regina right now?
Louise is. one
Louise,
with
what's going
the-
on?
Louise?
Yeah, I was trying to find in the myriad of stuff that I've gotten about Prop 33. But I do, and I couldn't find the flyer, I might have tossed it, but I do remember on the TV, they're talking about, you know, that it would also something about reducing affordable housing, and I'm like, well, how is that even connected? I mean, what do you know what the argument is? Like, have you heard that argument, and do you know what I'm talking about? Like,
There are, no, off the top of my head, I don't know exactly what it is that you're talking about, but it sounds like a line of argument that the Apartment Association has been saying out there, which says that if you don't allow us to make money off of having apartments, then who's going to keep up the apartments? And then then you won't even have the available units that are already available, which is wrong. Yeah,
so
so I have not heard the exact argument that you're talking about, but billions with a B of dollars in advertising is being put in by the Apartment Association and others, and the Apartment Association in multiple names. Like there have been exposés about the number of doing business as associations that are affiliates of the apartments and landlords and others who are trying to kill all manner of rent control in the state of California. And that's what it is. So like I said, I haven't heard exactly what you're talking about, but it sounds like that.
Well, they're spending money on multiple ads during the playoffs, which is why I've heard it a bunch of times.
That's
This
right.
probably says a little something in itself. So, okay.
Well, it also says on the actual sample ballot that the opponents are the California Council for Affordable Housing, Women Veterans Alliance, and California Chamber of Commerce. That's who's listed as the opponents on this sample ballot.
I've seen the argument that you were talking about. It's claims about construction of new housing. And I think that's, like Regina said, it's just taking a small part and misconstruing it however possible to try and make an argument that is usually kind of baseless, for lack of a better word. So I think that's what it is that a lot of people are saying that this would cut construction. But from my understanding, that's not what this is about.
David, cry me a river, indeed. Okay, well then this information is going to live on our website. If you have any question, if you are in the shower tomorrow morning and you realize, I could have asked Regina, email me. You can ask Regina. It's fine. This is what we're here for from now until all the cows come home. This is what we're doing, and we want to be a resource for you. So if there's nothing else, go in peace. Serve the Lord.